Welcome back. And now we have a difficult but necessary story about the rights of young girls and women in Egypt. Female genital mutilation, or FGM, affects millions of girls every year around the world, often before their 5th birthday. My next guest, Gail Young, was a colleague during the 1990s when she was CNN correspondent and Cairo bureau chief. There, she helped expose that brutal practice, and her report sparked outrage in Egypt, but it did lead to change. Now she's reflecting on that groundbreaking work and on the extraordinary women, past and present, who shaped her journey. That's in a new memoir called Update, Reporting from an Ancient Land. And I must warn you, one of the clips we showed during the interview is difficult to watch. Gail Young, welcome to the program. And we know each other for a long time. Used to be a CNN producer and correspondent, and we crossed paths a lot, especially during the 90s. This memoir, though, is not just about your time at CNN, but also it's kind of unusual, as you say. It's about, what, an ancient Syrian queen. She features a lot.
Yes, it is an unusual memoir. It is a memoir. It is about my adventures, as you said, in Egypt in the 1990s, when I was sort of unexpectedly became a CNN correspondent and bureau chief in Cairo. But I was also always fascinated with Roman history. And on my first assignment in Syria, I became aware of this ancient Syrian queen, Zenobia. And I realized over the years that our paths kept sort of overlapping because we would encounter sort of similar things at the same age at that time. Wars and rebellions and sieges and disasters, and also things like, I don't know, recalcitrant camels and warm beer, but 17 centuries apart.
You know, I remember you especially with your camerawoman, Mary Rogers. You guys made a formidable team in the mid-90s in Egypt, and it was about FGM, female genital mutilation. So what led you to this story? And then we're going to play it. It's quite hard to watch and to listen to, even, 30 years later.
Well, I had a tutor, and she would come to my house.
An Arabic tutor.
Mm-hmm, and we would speak Arabic. And one weekend, she was all excited because her little sister was going to be circumcised. And I was shocked. I had no idea that that happened in Egypt. I'd never heard anybody mention it. But when I started to do some investigating, it was a lot of girls, all of them practically, 97% by some reports at that time. And yet no one never seemed to talk about it or understand it as an issue.
Negla is 10 years old. She's excited to be the center of attention, fearful of what might happen next. This morning, she'll be circumcised. Hag Omar is known in Arabic as a hygienic barber. He circumcises thousands of girls each year, as did his father before him. He doesn't bother to wash his hands or the child. A ripped sheet makes a crude bandage around her waist. The family celebrate. The operation will be quick, without anesthetic. Shame on you, chides the barber. It's finished. Soon you can get up and go play. I want you to know, Daddy, that I didn't want to be circumcised, and you did it to me, she says. Don't be a brat, her grandmother calls. It's over, says her father. Be brave, Negla. Be brave.
Honestly, it was shocking then, and it's shocking now. Obviously, we blurred out some of the pictures, which did not happen in its first airing. And what shocked you most about it? Because you were invited in, and you thought it was going to be some kind of celebration. I don't know what you expected.
The fact that she screamed at her parents, this is a shame upon you, a sin in Islam, and that she didn't want it and that they forced it on her. I think that was the most powerful point of that story. And, not only for the world, but for Egyptians themselves. And once that story aired, it was, it's hard to say something went viral before the internet, but it blew up. And everyone was talking about it. We were, both of us, interviewed by international press about that story. And then the next day, you did that thing you do with an interview with President Mubarak, where you held him accountable.
Do you think your government can outlaw that?
It needs to explain to the people. because if we cannot issue a law, they will not obey it, because we will never catch them or never punish them.
And not long after that interview, Mubarak, they did order that it would not be performed in public health facilities, and that they would start an education campaign. And here we are 30 years later, and the number of girls circumcised in Egypt has dropped dramatically. Studies showed it was at 97% before, or when we did the stories, and that now some surveys have suggested that only 15% of urban girls are now circumcised. Egypt itself puts that number for all girls more around 30th percentile.
So just to end up, how do you assess in your memoir and in your thoughts the results of your journalism, the results of your journey through the Middle East, through Egypt specifically?
Well, I saw the 90s as sort of a magical time in CNN because it was a beast that needed 24-hour coverage before going live was that easy, right? So I did a lot of human interest stories when I was at CNN, and you taught me a lot. And can I please tell this story?
I don't know the story.
Remember, we were in Algeria, and it was so dangerous.
God,
From the moment we
scary.
walked out
during the Islamic feast, takeover there.
We walked out of the airport, and people were spitting at us and calling us names. And the crew I brought from Egypt wouldn't go out of the hotel. So I found another crew. We went out. We were on the streets. And as we were shooting some B-roll for your story and looking at people, these guys came up behind us, and one of them says, "I want to kill you," in English. And I'm like, okay, nope, I'm good. We're going to get in the car and go back to the hotel. And you spun the cameraman around, grabbed the microphone, and put it up to this man, and you said, "Why? Why do you want to kill him?"
Really?
Yeah. And the thing was, you weren't aggressive. You weren't trying to shame him. You weren't challenging him. It was like you really wanted to know, why do you want to kill us? Why? And, he was so taken aback, but then he started talking, and a small group came around, and the whole mood changed. And, I love that idea that as journalists, we can use our, natural curiosity and our ability to just try to understand and ask that why.
Gail Young, thank you for reminding me, and thank you for being such a good colleague.
Thank you.
We had a heck of an adventure together, particularly in Egypt. And just to note, FGM was in fact officially banned in Egypt by President Mubarak during his time in office. President Sisi has signed a law now strengthening the penalty for those committing it.